Here we
Hey, there
are.
we
We are.
go.
We're live. We are live. We did it. We are late because Tom was late.
Yep, I apologize emphatically. Annoyingly, I was here. I was just not paying attention. I was sat in front of my computer for 20 minutes, but then got into something. So apologies. Apologies.
I know. For all of those
Wouldn't
watching,
happen on real broadcast television. It's terribly bad of me. I'm sorry. We'd have PAs and runners shivving me along. So apologies.
this is true. It's true. It's tough being an entrepreneur. We don't have those. We don't always have the beauty of having those people around. And I'm obviously far more of a guru that I was on time. Just
Absolutely.
we'll point. I know. Look at this. All your fans. Geez, I love you.
Well, I will try and establish my authority over the top of you, throughout the show, so I can reestablish
authority.
Yeah.
Oh, such a good topic.
About, right?
That is what we're here to talk about. Everyone who's jumping on, hello, who's jumping on, absolutely love this topic tonight. Anyone interested in education and dogma and people creating themselves as a guru and an authority and all those things, we wanted to talk about that tonight. And we want to explore this as a bit controversial. We're actually putting out there, with these ideas of creating ourselves as superior or better than we are, or having to be some other way, or what else would you say about that, Tom?
I just, I just think that a lot of the way education is done, and a lot of the way in which people believe that something external is going to give them the thing that then gives them the thing. It means if people choose to go and get super educated because that's informing their identity, in my experience, they're becoming more rigid and less available to what's possible in the moment. For me, the best learning I have received is about how to unlearn so much. I mean, yes, you need principles. Yes, you need a depth of understanding around concepts. But then it's like the education's got to get to a place where you can really drop your idea of yourself as being educated, all of the conditioning, ideally, it's like how to turn up fresh. And yes. Sometimes, not always, sometimes lots and lots of education makes people rigid. And it's just informing the ego. It's another structure of limitation.
Yeah. And I've always wanted to talk about this because I've always, I've had this thing about, and I've said it before, and it's not intending to trigger, right? Again, jump on, please post your comments and thoughts about this. This is a controversial topic, and I'm about to say something fairly controversial. But one of the things that I've always been challenged by, and is that this idea that psychology, psychiatry, academia, and all these places have somehow the answers, and then are somehow superior, and then are somehow we should look to them because they have the right answers, because they've done a lot of thinking and a lot of education, a lot of this and that in that area, as that is somehow more superior to something else. This is only my own experience, and I found that I think there's a lot of dogma around that. Like, I think it's just one way. I'm not saying it doesn't have a place. It definitely has a place. But in my experience, I mean, my personal experience is I went and saw a psychologist and multiple psychologists for 15 years, going from one and this and that and the other. And then it was actually a personal development program, and I never had to do it again. And then I actually started using psychology as a really beneficial tool for when I was going through some grief situations. So I started using it like a tool, not an answer. And I found this very fascinating. But what I found is people that study psychology, and this is my experience, and it is a bit of a generalization, I'm not saying that everyone is, people that study psychology and study psychiatry and then study academia and then actually get more and more and more educated, what I found is it was more of a separation than it was actually beneficial for the mental health for myself and others.
Yeah, I mean, in this area, this is is a tricky area. But I think in the realm of psychology, more than anything, I mean, I went to university to study psychology with an extraordinary passion for the mind, and left after 7 months because I felt what was being peddled was an actual social philosophy. And it was it's like psyche, in its purest translation is soul, right? It's soul. It's the study of soul, which is a connection between mind, body, and spirit. And yet the way in which most psychology is taught in the Western world is just like, oh, it's the study of the mind. It's like, no. And also the mind without the context of spirit is it, like, for me, psychology and spirituality, and I'm not on about religiosity, but spirituality, our place of meaning in the world and our understanding of our place in the world, and our journey towards our wholeness. If psychology and spirituality are the same thing, they're synonymous. It's like, and a lot of those studies came from the kind of Victorian idea that our job was to patch people together because they were having embarrassing difficulties fitting into our existing worldview. And actually, my experience, having been a therapist for 20 years, is when people turn up with problems, they're having an incredibly natural, organic response to a really weird world, and that they are not the problem. They're having a really beautiful response, and that beautiful response might be very uncomfortable for them in the form of anxiety and depression. But it's like, so yeah, I had friends who completed their psychology training and came out like these cookie cutter thinkers about what depression is and what anxiety is. And it's like, oh no. And every week in my practice, I work with someone who's like, oh my God, I was in years of therapy, and you've just shed a light on something. God, I wish I'd understood that sooner, And it's so especially in the realm of formal psychology training, not all and not everyone who has had that training is obviously bereft of spirit, but in principle, institutionally, I agree. Some of that training is, it's taking people a long, long, long way away from the answer, especially if it has a prescription pad on the desk.
Yeah. And when we look at the answer, right, this is interesting, because it's like, what did I want to say? When I got on here, I was like, how I mostly with what we do with this show is deal with something I'm triggered by. We've worked through my relationship problems now. I'm actually seeing this beautiful woman, and hopefully that she's watching, who I like very much, who has just been right beside me as I deal with my own stuff, and you've assisted me through. I haven't seen her come on, and now I'm like, oh, I hope she's coming on. But she's so lovely, and now I've settled into the idea of being committed in some way. It's been amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I just thought I'd say that because she's like so used to me worrying about everything.
Well, also good for people are. Oh, hi Amanda. Good work, by the way. Well done for being patient. But it's really good because people are coming on who have been here before, and so to give an update of the fact that you were, trying to commit to this amazing woman, but calling yourself single, and now having truly committed, and how much more relaxed and peaceful and positive and beautiful it is, and how she's now obviously going to be infinitely more available to you. Less need for control, more need for love, less to worry about. It's a beautiful thing. So good work.
It is. Yes, she's been very gracious and generous. Yes, thank you. Update. So now we've moved on to other things in the world, and it's interesting. It's like, whilst that was something that took over my thinking, it's like next week there's something else that shows up, right? And this is what I'm calling living. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe other people do it. I don't know. But this idea of like, I just got on this thing today. I was like, what annoys me so much is this idea that we have nothing to learn from someone unless they're somehow educated. I'm not saying everyone has this idea, or that if I don't go out and get educated, then I somehow am not worth learning from. or my expression somehow needs to be, and what is important to me and what I want to do and what I want to say and what's authentic to me is somehow not worth listening to unless I've got credentials on the side of my name. I'm like, what is that? When did we decide that certain information has something to do with the importance of our voice?
It's interesting, but also it's also changing because of social media. Actually, people are now qualified. Their credentials are more now about the social proof of their followership, right?
Yeah.
And how many people are they getting on their masterminds, and how many people are signing up to their courses, and how many people are return signing? These are actually real life indications, either of their marketing ability, which is, not always the greatest indicator of ability. But I think if someone has built a tribe and maintained a tribe and grown a tribe over years, and they've got lots of people who are getting really switched on and turned on by this person, then actually nowadays we can use other markers. And I always loved Anthony Robbins' response, because he's not particularly highly qualified in academic sense. And people would question his credentials, and he'd say, I have a PhD in results.
And it's interesting you say that. And that's the thing, right? When you look at some of the most effective things that are happening right now, you look at the results in people's lives, even if the results aren't there. I mean, realistically, if you think about the results that I was getting, I had no relationship with my mum, no relationship with my dad. I had very disconnected friendships. I had been seeing a psychologist and multiple psychologists for 15 years that had not done anything for that.
It's crazy. But check this out. If we were to get 500 psychiatrists or psychologists in a room, my grandmother was a psychiatrist. I have huge respect for people that dedicate their lives to making lives better. And some are amazing. But some are amazing probably because independently of some of their education. So psychiatrists and psychologists, whether they care to admit it or not, they are in the business of happiness. That's their job.
Yeah.
Right? And they might not couch it in those terms, but that's also a massive part of the problem. But if you ask them, 1,000 psychologists or psychiatrists, to total up the amount of hours of their training which was dedicated to the art of human contentment, they'd be like, what? It's pathology based. It's based on fixing problems. And it comes to problems as though they are problems needing to be fixed, as opposed to the heart needing to be listened to. It's a completely different perspective. Even the concept of the mechanical material idea of serotonin replacement drugs, which is like, oh, well, you're unhappy, but you're unhappy because there's an imbalance of chemicals in your brain. So we will take chemicals off a shelf and we'll put them into your system, and then you'll be happy. And it's like they are not unhappy because there's an imbalance of chemicals in their brain. Because they are unhappy, there's an imbalance of chemicals in their brain. And it's a fundamentally different way of looking at it. It's like, don't top up the chemicals, top up the flipping happiness. Like, search out the cause. And also, but not just the cause of the problem, but also, like, what's the context of joy that they're living in? Their life will be a reflection of their inner world. But understanding what joy is and where it comes from and how to cultivate it should be a vital part of the therapeutic process, and it's woefully lacking in many models.
Yeah. And look, one of the things, we explore all ends of popular debate here, right? So I'm just sort of listening to, if I was someone who was a psychologist and a psychiatrist or someone in academia right now, I'd be really triggered going, who the heck are you to say that, right? How dare you guys say that? Maybe
credentials.
Yes, that's actually my issue. Uh-huh. And I see this. How much experience have you got? Well, okay, I did psychology.
Right, yeah. Okay, but yeah, what's really interesting, right? That now, okay, I could say I've got credibility. I'm a published author. I've been working in the field for 20 years, right? But my life was changed by a massive single event epiphany, right? And most of what I talk about now, I'm better at talking about it. I've got better and simpler ways and more compelling ways to get people to understand me. But 95% of what I'm talking about, I learned in one instant. Transform my life. And and soon after I had that experience, I was talking about this stuff. And if someone had challenged me then, and I did, I wrote a book immediately, and someone said, "Yeah, but who are you? Like, who are you to have an opinion?" I'm like, it's like, and this idea of that formal education is gonna qualify me. The truth is, the most amazing thing is, much to my father's horror, I didn't have an academic bone in my body. I wasn't interested. I didn't read at all. And at 27, when I had this experience, my brain was completely clean, Jess. I mean, it had no conditioned academic education in it. Very little. I didn't have an ideology. I didn't have many ideas. So then if I'd been brought up in a certain way, or I had a formal traditional education or an academic education, I would have fitted that epiphany into a structured identity. And so actually, I think in so many ways, what you're saying is so important and valuable, that it's like, these things are not evidence of anything.
Yeah. And I'm noticing, I just want to call out, I don't know how to have this conversation, right? It's not intending to diminish anyone who has had some education, or that may have, like, I just saw Talita, she's like, "Oh, I've got a great psychologist." This is not to diminish the work that is out there, right? It's not. It's more, and I'm even struggling to put it into words. I'm going to do what I can to do it, because it's like, there's something about this is really impacting me, that I keep finding myself getting triggered about. And I did it. I went and studied psychology and psychiatry myself, not psychiatry, psychology and sociology myself, and wanted to be an academic. And I went into the academic world, and I was mentored by academics, right? So I'm not saying I've never experienced this, but then again, even the fact that I've had to say what I just said means there's somehow a pre-qualification having a view on something. There's something about this world that I find I'm kind of tiptoeing around, like, you can't touch it. And I could be wrong. So this is the thing. I need some comments here. I'm like, there's something that I'm even trying to get distinguished for myself.
So I'm just seeing a few comments from Tilly saying, she's got a great psychologist. And like you say, there's amazing psychologists and psychiatrists out there. We're questioning more the idea of, does formal education necessarily mean anything in terms of an actual qualification? A qualification mean disqualifies someone as having something to say. I see Steve Miller also saying that he studied a lot, and actually, it's limited.
Yeah, he's found it to be really complete fruitless.
Yeah, I think also one of the major risks. I actually did some training with Steve, and we remarked afterwards that we were. I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but it was a private training, and there was 35 people in that space, and there was a very few of those people I would be happy sending anyone to, and yet everybody got their piece of paper. They paid, right? So they got their diploma, right? Now the marketplace cleans out people that aren't effective hugely. So, I have a much greater trust for people who've managed to sustain a private practice long term for years, because actually, if you're no good, then the marketplace, won't let you get away with it most often. Even if you're really hard to be a success. There are a few people who are really good at marketing that don't have the skills to back it up, who get away with it for a while, but not usually 2 decades.
Not very long.
Yeah. So also the private educational world is terrifying, because it's there's no actual quality control there.
No, and it's interesting when you said results, and I think that's what I'm screaming for, right? Is like, when you look at some of the most unqualified people, like, let's just say they've got no freaking credentials at all. In fact, I'm just thinking of the person that made the biggest difference to me. She was, what was she? A change analyst. When I was working in corporate, that did, she didn't even, like, I don't even think she did any formal training in any domain at all. And I had gone to psychology and psychiatry, and I'd been like, oh, my mum has a mental illness and I can't deal, and my dad has done all these things, and I was broken, my parents divorced, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm like victim for like 15 years. And this woman said these words to me. No formal training, was so loving, so compassionate, and said, I hear you, but are you going to complain about this for the rest of your life, or are you going to do something about it? That's all she said. And my whole life started to shift. And I went and started looking at how I could do something about it. Now, I got seen by her because she was able to see love in me when I wasn't loving with myself. I got heard by her. She listened to me. And then it's almost like she just said the thing that I needed to hear, but I didn't even know I needed to hear it. She didn't ask me about my story. She didn't ask me to revisit my trauma. She said those words, and then I went and found all of that stuff out myself. That is someone with no formal training. They just said those comments to me, right? Like no educated formal training, but she was interested in making a difference to people.
Yep. And, you would have been in a certain place poppable. If someone had said that to you 4 years before, you wouldn't have heard it, right?
Well, I think it was how she said it that was so profound for me.
Yep, of course.
It was the amount of love and compassion that she had with me. With most people, I was so angry. I was such an angry lesbian. I was one of those, I was like, frickin' man, yeah, these aliens, they treat me this. And my mum, I was just so angry. Right? So I had someone be loving with me despite all of that. And there was no formal education in that love.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, so in the world of, we're being rude about education, I have an academy where I train people, right? I train people how to be therapists in my model, right? So let's be clear. But and there is, there's technology in there that I share, right? Which is valuable in terms of how to help people have different experiences of themselves or their fears or their life. But the largest part of my training, I believe, is about giving people the confidence to let go of their formal and their limited sense of self, and to turn up in the moment with a commitment to truth and love, and to speak from the heart, and to trust in the innate healing ability of their clients. Now that's actually a philosophical position or a spiritual position. And if someone can do that, and anyone can do that, anyone watching this could do that, they could choose to have a conversation with anybody in their life that's struggling. They could get super present, and they could believe on a very deep level that they're the perfect person to help that person, because they wouldn't be having that conversation otherwise. And then just see what comes through. And amazing breakthroughs can happen from that perspective of belief. And when we truly care about supporting someone else, amazing things happen. So it's, there's formal education, which leaves people feeling conditioned, rigid, and limited. And then there's education which empowers people to trust that they have inside themselves innate gifts that they then feel confident enough to share with the world, And it's like, and of course, anyone could get either of those things from any model of training, Yeah,
absolutely.
But because I've seen that, someone having letters after their name doesn't automatically qualify them for me. It means that they've applied themselves. And someone else I noticed in the comments said it does mean that they've got an interest. If they've done 5 different trainings around the area, then yeah, that means they have a passion for it, probably. That's good. And I'm more interested in people who've studied a few different models, because then they're going to be a bit more rounded. But if someone is literally just like the Gestalt counseling guy, and that's, it becomes dogmatic, right? Rigid. And that gets dangerous, I think.
Yeah. And maybe that's what it is. I'm still trying to, one of the things I know even for myself is I don't want to get on here being dogmatic and being like a guru and like I have an answer to this problem, right? I mean, I'm not even sure I can articulate it. There is just something that's not sitting with me, right? So I'm trying to think what's funny is I'm about to draw on research. But see, these things are all important, right? And I think of what Brene Brown I love Brene Brown. She did all that research, she became a researcher and she did all the things and got qualified and then studied happiness and what was really at the core of happiness. And then she gets to the bottom of that and finds that it's vulnerability. And she was hoping that she wasn't going to find that. And then she realized she has to be vulnerable and go and demonstrate it. She talks about that in her TED Talks. And she wanted to hide her stuff because she didn't want to have to go and be vulnerable. And she talks about that. And then I think, how many therapists, educated professionals that I've ever met can sit there and open themselves up and be vulnerable with me about themselves?
That's a really good question, because so much professional training is about not doing that, right? It's about being guarded. It's about not sharing yourself. And especially in the traditional psychology, psychiatry world, the Freudian model, they share nothing of themselves. They don't even sit in your line of vision. They sit behind you whilst you lie down on a couch, because they don't want to get in the way, they don't want to be formed in your mind. So you start then projecting onto the therapist, and then you learn out what their problem is based by their projections. I mean, it's like, I want personal people who share of their challenges. I mean, I've been doing more and more kind of vulnerable posts over this last year, and it's been amazing how many people have really worried about me. It's been really, really lovely. But I know some people have been like, that is not very professional. I mean, you're going to be putting off clients by being that unhinged or crying on camera or talking about how hard it is sometimes to try and make things work when it doesn't always work. It's like, but it's for me, it's having less masks. Like, the more I can be who I am in every conversation without any difference at all. And my partner for years has been just saying, I can dip into what she calls guru voice, which is this very considered, very kind, very gentle. And it's like, whereas last week I was advising you to, snog your girlfriend while sitting on the face of another woman, right? I mean, it's like, that's not necessarily professional, right? But I had the blast.
Oh, wow.
I know, and I've inspired a few people to take action. They're looking at volunteers. Like, people have been reaching out and talking about how they've been inspired. Like, you know what? I came off that call feeling enlivened, and I felt myself. Now, some people will run a mile from me because I will talk about that stuff, and other people will be like, "That guy's cool. I want to hang out with him." And it's like, that's what I want I don't want academics or professionals who hide behind professionalism. Fuck professionalism. It's like, let's have humanity, lots of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's what it is that doesn't sit well with me, is I'm probably resisting parts of myself that I've almost kind of let go of, which is, I remember how dogmatic I was. I was such a know-it-all, arrogant asshole. And I remember for years, all I would do is seek information and seek education and seek all of that, so that I could just tell everyone the stuff I knew and be better than them and feel safe. That was my way to feel safe, right?
Oh, and that's bad, right? Oh, okay, good to know. That sounded awesome for a minute. That sounded awesome.
Did it? I was such a treat to be with. I'm actually surprised that anyone wanted to be with me, to be honest, but someone did. And yeah, but I didn't. I had friends, but this is the thing. I had friends that were kind of okay with that. And there are groups of people that were okay with that. And I was studying to be a sociologist. And so I had a mentor who was a sociologist, and he was just as arrogant as me. And that was what seemed to be safe. And I left people as I went back, later, and went, I sort of did this mass, what I called cleanup, where I went up to all these people that I was horrible to. A bunch of people, and said, I was really horrible to you. I mean, there's one person I actually literally got fired at work because she was undermining my work, and I had the power to do that. And so I got her fired. So I hunted her down and said, I just want to let you know, I was the biggest jerk to you because you threatened my status. And I wanted to apologize, and wasn't okay. And it was really disgusting behavior. But my superiority told me that was okay and justified that behavior, right? So I went through all that, a real treat. So what do you do with that? I don't even know where we're going with this, but it was like
we're getting some great comments. So I'm just checking in with the comments whilst you're speaking.
Yeah. It's like underwear. Amanda Burnett always has great things to say.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
It's like underwear. I have to find the right fit. It's also a personal commitment to do the work, not just have a whinge sesh.
Yes.
It is, absolutely.
But I also like what she said there about how vulnerability, if we are vulnerable, then it really lets other people recognize that it's safe for them to be open. And I think that's something that therapists and coaches get wrong. They don't understand. By being really professional, they're just, it's like people, sometimes in my early years, I noticed my clients were not doing well, but they wanted me to think that they were doing better because they wanted to please me because they felt I was invested in, it was like, oh man, let's take a step back. Let's all be way more honest. And it's like, I'm hoping you're going to be fine and amazing, but I don't need you to come here and make it up for me. It's like, let me share with you some of my crazy. And then, then it got a lot more beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Carly. Thank you for that comment. She's saying I should just be myself.
Oh yeah. And look, even what I just said then, right? Even when I shared with you this kind of bully that I used to be.
Yeah.
And some of that bullying behavior that I took on, I don't share that because I want people to worry about me. I share it because I know in sharing, this kind of humanity that I used to live with every day in, day out, where I would go into work and I'd be angry, upset, frustrated. I'd treat people that way, come home, be empty, have nothing to, it's like, I didn't know anything else. That was me living. And I've come on here frustrated with the kind of thing that I used to get frustrated with. And I'm like, how do we impact that, Tom? Like, how do you actually en masse, how do we let go of this thinking of superiority and needing to look better than we are, and that there's someone else that has an answer? And I just got put off by that comment. Okay.
I'm blushing here. It says Facebook user on these people. I need to know who these people are. Some of them are saying lovely things. Is there something people need to do so that they get their name gets registered instead of Facebook user?
They do. They have to go into StreamYard. There's they have to go in and click. Okay. Yeah.
So put your name at the end of your comment if you're not registered with StreamYard, so we can see who it is if you can be asked. Yeah. Especially when they me compliments, I love that. So that's nice. Okay. So for me, one thing that I know after a really important thing when running workshops is this we have a responsibility in any form of kind of teaching role to myth bust on any pedestal placing, right? So many teachers will actually mac off that. They'll actually encourage it. They will create an air of enlightenment, and it's really important to talk about the nuts and bolts of your madness with your clients and with your people on your workshops, because otherwise they're going to project and transfer and imagine you special, and it's just like it doesn't help anybody. And the worst thing it does is it can actually then end up corrupting that teacher, placing them onto a guru status. They may well bit by bit get into that, start believing their own hype, and then it's only a few years before they start doing terrible things, because that kind of power always very commonly corrupts people. And there's this play, and it's all a form of spiritual materialism. It's like a pyramid scheme. It's like if we below fantasize about the awesomeness of the qualified or the more enlightened, then we have hope that there's somewhere to get to where we'll finally feel peace and we'll finally be some kind of fucking superhero. And it's like, no one is a superhero. There's nowhere to get to. There are no rungs on any ladder. There's nothing you can buy. There's no education you can get. Nothing will fill the hole. Nothing will answer. No one has all the answers, and no one doesn't have massive amounts of uncertainty about their place in the world and their value. It's just, are we all journeying with that? Some of us may learn some tools to help manage that, but it's like, it's way better for us to be open and honest about our frailty, so that no one projects onto us some kind of like specialness that then ends up separating them from their true source of contentment, you know. And it's like so many models and so many teachers and so many educational establishments make money off that hierarchy. I am somewhere you want to be, you're in pain, and I know the map to your happiness, and if you just give me $99 or $999, then I'll show you the path, you know. And it's like, you know, there are tools, definitely, but let's not make it that I'm in a place you want to be. It's all aspirational, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's what it is, right? I'm like, how did we all just acknowledge that we can be the biggest asshole on the planet, and we can also be the greatest miracle that existed? And there's this option, not option, it's like there's this allness about us. We can be all the things. You know, sometimes I don't do things that are great, but what I learned is that hiding and justifying my behavior and pretending it wasn't happening is actually what was continuing to keep it going. And that it doesn't matter whether I've done 20 years, you know, fortunately enough, I've come across people that have led to people who are monks, enlightened monks that sit upon the mountains in wherever monks sit in mountains, and they too can be jerks to each other when they actually start getting in relationship. It doesn't matter if you're Tony Robbins. I reckon he would do things that absolutely pissed his wife off. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
For sure.
You look under, for sure. We look behind the covers. That everyone is got humanity. It doesn't go away. And I'm like, how can we all just acknowledge this realness about us, that there is nowhere we're going. There is no path to enlightenment. There is nowhere to get. We're all just human.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what? I'm going to honor you right now, because I think what you're doing and how you're doing it is the solution. You know, it's conversations, it's openness, it's non-rigidity, it's bearing your soul, it's being vulnerable, it's being open, it's being willing to pivot and when presented with new information. It's critical thinking, where we begin with the presumption my understanding is limited and I'm open to being evolved. You know, it's like finding any rigidity. I remember hearing, or I think, I was listening to an audiobook, Deepak Chopra, who had been very identified as being non-violent, you know, just, you know, one of his core values. And if I remember the story correctly, he happened to be set upon by three guys, one of which who had a baseball bat. And without really knowing how, he kind of managed to wrestle the baseball bat from one of them, and then like whacked one of them round the back with the bat. And then they all ran away. And in 10, 20 seconds, he was there, having been very violent, and sent these people packing, you know. And one of them probably had a nasty bruise, and it felt probably appropriate, you know. And it's like, I am violent, you know, I have the capacity for violence, you know. And it's like, and this is about moving beyond our conditioned idea of who we are and what's called for. It's like all of those things hold in place our personality, and our personality is an illusory mask we use to cope with our fear. And it's our politeness, it's our operating system, it's not who we are. And our education can become a really sticky part of that mask. And I think it prevents us from seeing our humanity. It keeps people at a distance. It certainly within the field of psychology and psychiatry can not create the kind of warm and loving environment that actually creates change. Some of the most powerful spiritual teachers and workshops I've been on, they were just orchestrated to make us feel that there was nothing we could do or say that wouldn't be welcome. Yeah, and they did exercises, yes, they did rituals, but that wasn't it, you know. It was just like this unbelievable field of unconditionality, you know. And it's like, oh God, it was just so rich and so deep and so freeing. It's like, I'm loved anyway. I'm loved anyway. And it's like all these qualifications are it's another resting place for egotism. And I think the most important thing I, read on this was the book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa. And it's absolutely brilliant. The preface is like, if you think personal development and spirituality is going to somehow make your life easier, then you should turn back. Turn back now. Put this book down. It literally says, put it down. Go back to your normal life. This is going to make you question everything. This is going to make your friends question you. This is going to make your work complicated and complex. It's like, turn back. Because most people enter onto the spiritual path with the egotistical idea that there's somewhere to get to that's going to be awesome and easy. And as a result of that, we go from going, oh, well, I don't need 5 Mercedes, but I do need to touch my toes in yoga. And I don't need 5 houses. I need to find the perfect spiritual teacher. And we just transplant our kind of materialistic egotism onto our spiritual path. And with that, and academia is a really classic part of that. It's like, I've done this many courses and this many courses, and
Absolutely. So if we're looking here going, education, dogma, you're going from one realm, which is education, academia, and saying, oh, we've done this many courses. You go into another realm, which is spirituality. I'm enlightened because I've meditated for 20,000 years, and I've sat on, I don't even know the mountain.
Yeah. Monks. I've mounted monks on mountains. Yep.
Someone said that, mountain monks. I've done the mountains. I say that, right? I'm like, I've done 6 years of transformational leadership. I've led programs. I've gone to Mexico, held hands, hugged people, screamed in waterfalls. I've done all of it. I've, done intimacy work, all of this, right? I did it. None of that means anything about how I'm treating you right now. It doesn't mean anything if all I do is come onto this call or this conversation with you and tell you about how educated I am, how much I've done, not listen to you, not pay attention to what matters to you, and not be who I say I am. It doesn't mean anything. It really matters nothing about what happened before. What matters is, what am I doing with all of that right now with Tom?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I doing? What happens when someone comes on and gets upset with me? Am I going to turn into a nasty jerk again? Or am I going to leverage all of that thinking and exploring that I've done about who I am and actually channel it into an authentic expression of myself in this moment right now?
Yeah, it's. I think we spoke briefly. We will speak for a minute or so before we go on air to work out what we're going to talk about. And for me, the summary I got to in that moment was, all of our learning is at its highest point when it's about unlearning. For me, it's like, how can I be present right now? How can I be present, not to who I am in this moment, but to what's being called for, right? Every moment is a divine opportunity for freedom and truth and love, right? And it's like, do I need education to know that? No. Do I need training to probably unlearn all the shit that gets in the way? Definitely. I do think that transformational training, spiritual-based psychology that enables us to get beyond the false self and rest in the present in a free way is valuable and useful. But if I wear that as a badge, then I'm still flipping rigid, lost. So it's, for me, it's about getting present, like having enough understanding to not be limited by all my conditioning.
And we're almost getting conditioned every day. Like, it not be limited by my conditioning is like, it's like daily we're getting conditioned, really, aren't we?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We're exposed to, most marketing messages, unfortunately. For me, I try and make a mission of trying to create marketing messages which confirm people's greatness in potential, as opposed to confirming their lack, which then needs to be, it's like, and it's challenging because so much of the language of marketing is not quite as you should be. So come over here for a fee and we'll make you better.
It's so interesting that you say that, because some of the feedback that I've gotten from people sometimes is, you know, why do you have to, I read some of your posts sometimes and I feel like I'm not as good. And it's interesting. I look at that and go, I wonder if I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm marketing in some way, that I'm a little bit in front of all of you. And if you just do my programs and come to my social media school, then you'll be a little bit better and you'll be like me. And I wonder if I fall into that. And I have to stop and consider it, right?
Well, here's the thing. I think there's thanks for clarifying, Cal. Sorry, just watching it like tomorrow instead of Tom. I think it's okay to talk about. I have some tools that you might find useful, and they will unleash from within who you naturally are that you might not be fully connected to at present, right? There's a difference, as opposed to you're inadequate and I have something to add to you, which will be of value, right? To you are perfect and you have everything inside you that you require, and yet there may be some unlocking that you might really benefit from, that I, not from a position of authority, but from a position of personal struggle, and then some understanding. I might have some keys that might fit perfectly into the locks that are preventing you from being who you really are. You know, and it's like, I think it's okay. I've spent many years working out how to talk about stuff and how to give people the confidence to unlock their fears, clear their resentments, remove all of the barriers so that they can truly be free to be who they are. And I've worked really hard to develop those tools, and I think it's okay. I'm really okay with being paid to dedicate my time to helping people unlock their potential. Okay. And there's been a great amount of effort and skill that's gone into crafting those keys that I've developed. But I'm really clear that it's based on people's absolute perfection and adequacy and fullness and wholeness that they might not be fully expressed in. Now, that might just be semantics to some, but I think that makes a difference. I think that makes a difference. I think it is okay to say, I am a bit further down the path potentially, and on the way, because I've been absolutely mental and lost and, you know, broken, I've learned some things, and it was really painful for me because I'm a slow learner. It's taken me 20 years, but actually, if I've got some things to share, which means you could maybe do it in 2, right? That's not a position of superiority, but it may be a position of having been a bit more experienced in an arena.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what do you think about this? Because and you know, maybe I go too far, I don't know, and what I do is always bring things back to the relevant moment. So in my programs, I'm always looking for, what am I dealing with right now that I could share that maybe people don't realize, because maybe people at some level do think I'm somehow more ahead or not as human as them. And I'm always looking for that thing. So, in the last week, I made some pretty poor decisions. Not last week, last 2-3 weeks, I made a couple of bad decisions and lost a whole lot of money in my business. And I'd already paid for, expected that money to come in. So then I paid for a whole bunch of stuff. And so what I was left with was this real gap in income. What I noticed is that I wanted to hide that. And what I got really present to was just how attached I was to the status of looking like a successful entrepreneur. And apparently that means I never make mistakes and I never make poor decisions, right? Or at least look like I never do.
Yeah, that's really important.
And I even like, I was with myself going, what am I going to do? I got to think of I got to do this, I got to do that. I'm going to work my guts off for the next, 6 weeks. I'll work loads of hours. I'll probably have my, this new relationship that I love suffer, and I'll probably not look at my kids for a while, and I won't have friends, because then I'll cover that up, earn the income back so that I can save face. And then I went, this is what I did in corporate. This is no different. This is exactly the same as being in corporate and pretending that it is as an entrepreneur and pretending. And then I was like, every entrepreneur is doing this.
Especially especially in the coaching industry, a lot, right? And I think that's what's so refreshing, and I think the last year I've been exposed to lots of amazing coaches, like in Australia, right? Just because you start liking them, and then the algorithm just starts sending me, and I've been blown away actually by the real mixture I've seen, and the realness and the rawness and the connection of some amazing teachers there who are like wild and wonderful and on air talking about their STDs and crying and losing it, and then being so inspirational and real and then funny. And it's just like I've definitely learned a lot about being all of me, and and you're in that category too. I love your posts. They are rich. They do make me think that some stuff about how to create engaging stuff, but it's like, because you're being all of you. And I feel that if you are hiding, it won't be long before the truth comes out, and as you're demonstrating here. And then you'll talk about how it was, you won't then just be vulnerable. You will make it a reflective piece of like, oh, I didn't really want to share, and what does that mean about being an entrepreneur? The added value of actually that self-reflective kind of messaging is actually quadrupling it, because it's not one or the other, it's both, but with that reflection of, oh, I want to be bullshit, but I'm and I'm noticing how that would really hold me back, so I'm going to share that too, right? It's awesome.
But then also notice this, it's like there's this, now the entrepreneur world is full of shit, and I've realized for myself, I'm like, wow, I thought it was just corporate. No, now I'm clear it's fucking everyone. Okay. It was like, wow. I noticed the pull for that myself to save face, right? And then I sort of sat there going, should I tell my clients this? Will this impact me? I'll turn you into a 6-figure entrepreneur. Will I lose clients that come to me for that? And then I went, I don't know. I don't know if I will, but these are the kind of businesses that I want to create. I want to create businesses in the world that are human, that are so human, and there's no separation between me and you. We just have humans. And yes, you can learn from me these skills that I learned, which is how to be human, and that's what it's all about. You can learn these skills from me. So I'm like, am I really any further ahead? This is what I like to consider, right? This is the education piece. Am I really any further ahead than anyone? Or maybe I just have a unique expression that's like, I see it like side by side. Maybe there's just unique expression that I have because of what I've lived. And there's these unique tools and things that I see that maybe other people just don't see. And maybe everyone can learn from everyone.
I think that's really important. I think as you're talking, there's something opened up for me, so I want to share it, which I've not considered before, which is like what I love about these conversations, because I'm in this conversation not to talk about what I know, but to find out what I don't know. And as you were talking there, something dawned on me that the challenge, I think, in my psychology, and I think the psychology of a lot of people, is that there is this road that we're traveling on from not good to great, or from good to better, right? And then there's this concept of ahead and advanced and better that turns up. But like, what if we're just all in this fixed point on a net of awareness, right? And it's just like we all have, because of our unique position on that map, that is also moving, that we have a unique perspective, just like you said. It's like not better, not further along, but uniquely mine, filled with frailty, filled with paradox, filled with skill, filled with some training, some rigid, some less so. But it's like that puts me in a position that no one else is on the map. And as that net kind of like spins around in its orbit, no one could possibly have your whole worldview, and you'll see some things more clearly because of that than anyone else. And you can talk from that perspective, that there's an authority to you, right? And I think that's a really beautiful evolution of where we all want to get to, because that automatically empowers everyone you're speaking to think about what is their unique lesson, what is their unique mess, what is their unique message. There's nowhere to get to. There is always something to learn from every person on every point on the map. you know, I love it. I think that's really, really beautiful.
I profoundly, fundamentally, emphatically believe that that is the case for every human being on planet Earth.
Which is why you have a frustration with someone then going and then feeling that because they've done a bit of studying or even a lot, that somehow makes their perspective more valuable than anyone else's on the map.
Well, yes. And then what I grapple with is making them wrong because then that's completely contradictory to my own value system because they have a unique perspective that I need to get interested in.
No, they have a unique perspective that has incredible value, right?
Yeah, they do.
But if that perspective is built on an idea that theirs has more value than another's, then I think that's where we all go wrong. You know, when we realize that we're not special, we become incredibly special. You know, when we drop our need to be considered to be special, then we become ultimately magical.
That is, yeah. And I think that's what I wanted to express. Of course, that's why. You know, that's why it's so triggering for me. Is at some level, it's true. And I think that's actually the paradox of life, isn't it? Is that it is true that you have information that makes you uniquely valuable and no one else has that information. And that's in complete partnership with, that does not mean that you are any different to everyone else, because every other human has unique experience and information and value and expression that is just as important, which is why I call it flavor. In my business, I say we have these flavors of expression. It's like they're just different. I want to taste it. And let's see what.
Say coriander is better than basil, right? They're usually elementally different essences, right? I get it. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I much prefer coriander. That's a bad example. I love them both.
I chose two particularly competitive like herb flavors there, so you couldn't choose one, you know.
Yeah, but flavors, so chocolate and vanilla. Use chocolate and vanilla. I could, I don't care how boring it is. I freaking could do vanilla all day. I just love vanilla. Chocolate's okay, but I don't prefer it. And I think we are like that about everything.
People are going crazy here. We got some basil people, we got some coriander people. It's hard to pick a neutral example, but I'm with you, girls.
And so how, and I always come back to, I imagine a world where we related to each other as flavors. It's going to sound funny now. But we did. We related now with Sage. What if, I'm the basil and Tom's the coriander? No, it's like, but imagine that we related to that. And I'm like talking, just to get it right in there. There's a guy that's, I hope he doesn't, I'm not going to identify him. There's just a guy that I'm working with at the moment that's come from addictions. And he's been a heavy addict, and he's also had ADHD and been on this ADHD medication. And I did some work with him today, and we were going through, have sharing your authentic message. And I was like, what do you really want to say? What do you really want to say? And he's like, oh, his message was just so beautiful. It was so moving. He's like, I want women to feel wanted and held and just taken and loved. And I want men to get rid of this bullshit, conditioning that we've got, that we can't be vulnerable and we can't be soft. And I want to rid the world of this porn addiction that we've got because we don't know how to be intimate. And I was like, if I listened to you and related to you as someone that was just an addict who had ADHD, I would not get that message. I would not get that value. It's like we miss the beauty in these people and in people. We miss the beauty when we relate to some way that we are, or some experiences that we've had or not have, as somehow some hierarchy. And I'm not okay with that. And I want to make a world and create a world and carve out a world that doesn't do that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I am with you. I am with you.
Yeah. That is all.
Okay, we can end it there, can't we? That says it all.
I think, yeah. Oh, wow. It's 10. Yeah, it is. So on that note, this is getting a bit spicy. All right. Oh my God, we got on coriander. Everyone that tuned in, thank you so much. You'll have to put the flavor you are, what herb you would be if you would be a herb. If I was a herb, what herb would you be if you were a herb? I reckon I would be, what's my favorite herb? It probably is coriander, actually. It really is. I love it. I could have it on everything.
Well, herb is my middle name. Literally.
Is it? It is herb.
Yeah. So,
all the herbs.
So I'm all the herbs. That's it. Yeah, I'm a oneist. So I'm all about the one herb.
Yeah.
I like. You see, Lorna, I'm the whole garden. That's it. Oneness all the way.
Oneness all. Yes, you're the whole garden. See, even in your name. Oh, so funny. Kel Sage. Thank you, Jessie and Kel and Sally and Kylie and Carly and Lorna and if I'm missing anyone, Samantha, Trish,
Mary. I'm not sure how to say that.
Oh yeah, Marilyn. Well, I know who she is. Mary, that's a fake name. And everyone else who was on, watching in and tuning in to Evolution Solutions. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Tom Forts-Mayer, for creating what is New Conversations, and away from debating and away from this need for right and wrong, but actually exploring and involving our own thinking as a courageous act of change. So thank you for being a part of that and doing this with me. I just love it. Until next week.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night. Be on time. Okay. Love you. Okay. Okay. Love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.